We'll change it up. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Jay, for that panel. I'd like to welcome onto the stage Cherie Cohen, the CRO of the World Surf League. We also have AJ Nwazu, who is the CEO of Tech Ball, and Lisa Franklin, the CMO of DC United. Let's give a hand. Thanks for being here, guys.
Exciting.
So I'm very excited about this panel, and we already got into it and went over time last time, so I'm sure I'll be watching that clock this time. But anyway, our panel is to talk about what's up next in the new generation and how to grow professional sports. And we thought with each of you having such different diverse backgrounds, both at your current platforms, but also just in your experience in industries, that this was a great opportunity to talk about what is next in sports. So I'll start, Cherie, with you, and then put the question to each of you. But as part of instead of a bio, maybe give us something that you're proud about that your league or your team has done to date. Maybe something that you're proud about that's going to be new and next that'll be happening in the near future. And then, why are you passionate about where you work for?
Oh wow, that's a chock-full question. Thank you. So I'll kick it off. I have been in the sports and entertainment industry for the better part of 26 years. I actually worked for this man at one point at ESPN.
I worked for her, trust me.
Which was a great experience. A little bit of time at Paramount Pictures, ESPN, NBC Universal. And when I got the call to go to the World Surf League, I think the builder in me was awakened. I really do like to build and develop and grow. So the opportunity to help grow a global professional sport that had so much momentum and was on the precipice of an Olympic debut was really exciting to me. And then equally exciting to me was connecting to a more value-driven proposition. The league does a lot of work around sustainability and environmentalism, and as well equality and inclusion. And I thought that was just a great opportunity to take my professional life into an area that could maybe deliver partnership with more purpose. So that was sort of my impetus. Surfing is a beautiful sport, and it doesn't suck to go to great locations around the world. So all of that said, I've been there for almost 5 years. You asked another question about how we think about developing the sport and what we're most proud of. I think our league began paying men and women equally in 2018, which was a real marker in the industry, a bit before even some of the soccer leagues and international leagues kind of caught on. That helped to identify, an equal playing field since then. And then we've integrated the tours. So men and women surf at all the same locations, and we provide equal coverage. And so I guess the last bit of work to really do is to get the sponsorship to catch up, which I know the industry and women's sports ecosystem is hard at work on. And we work with a lot of those groups. The second thing I'm pretty proud of was integrating wearable technology into the field of play for the first time in any professional sport. So one thing about working at the beach is a lot of work that goes into technology to bring communications and infrastructure to each beach. Many of them are remote locations. And we noticed right away that our athletes had a hard time communicating and understanding scores and needs and all of that, as well as safety. And we were able to work with Apple to integrate with our scoring system and for the first time use wearable technology in the open ocean, which was new and innovative and very interesting, and that will be evolving this coming season. So lots of different ways to bring technology to the water. Sounds dangerous, but it isn't. And also...
It's the opposite. You get the GPS if they get caught under a big wave, right? Then
100%.
Expedited faster, yeah.
Yeah. So those are a few things I'm excited about, and happy to be here.
Great. AJ?
Awesome. Thank you for that question. AJ Nwosu, I'm CEO of Techball. If you're not familiar with Techball, it's an element of soccer ping pong. It's soccer played on a curved table. You've probably seen it down in Santa Monica or Venice Beach, where we are periodically and daily. To answer your question, Eric, I think there's a couple of different inflection points for me. I think number one is we were added as a medal sport for the European Olympic Games this past summer, which took part in Krakow in June in Poland. And for our sport, which has been around for the best part of 8.5 years now, since the genesis of it to where we are today, that is a pretty monumental moment. We've also been added as a medal sport for the African Beach Games, the Asian Beach Games, and we are lobbying right now to be part of LA 28 Games as well. So we're the fastest ever recognized sport in the world, which is, again, something that I'm super proud of. And then I think the latter part to that is we've grown tremendously in the last 18 months. And we have just shy of 200 employees across 3 countries around the world, Budapest, Luxembourg, and LA. And for me, it's really how do we scale caring, right? We've hired just under 50 employees in 18 months. And I think from that perspective, how do we make the 50th employee to when we scale to 500 people feel, involved as impactful in terms of the direction of travel and the inertia we're creating as an organization. So really scaling caring, I would say, is something that I've been proud of as well.
That's great. Great answer.
Good morning. Lisa Franklin, Chief Marketing Officer at DC United, which is the Major League Soccer team in DC. I started out in sports earlier in my career, but I took a pivot for about 15 years and went into tech and gaming. And so my decision to come into sports is I always wanted to come back. But it was really about our leadership. Our president of business operations, Dania Johnson, who come from the NBA, WNBA, and our owners, they were really looking at how do we do things differently. They all had kind of a basketball background, but they wanted to really look at soccer and our, ability to kind of reach a number of different fans, from the casual to the hardcore, and we're willing to do it differently. And so for me, and we'll talk about later because I've spent so much time in digital, I truly believe in the value of digital. And so the ability to be able to marry those two together and really look at how we bring everyone in to experience soccer was really big for me. I think the thing that I'm most proud of, and I can't take credit for this, but is that Major League Soccer, if you think about professional sports, the NBA, the NFL, the MLB have really led the fandom of professional sports. But now MLS is coming up to the forefront, and among Gen Z, it's the #1 sport. And so the ability to be able to grow that quickly means that there's a lot of opportunity in the middle. And so there's a lot that can be done that we've been able to do. And in our stadium, everything from virtual currency, becoming cashless, our ability to be able to host our women's soccer league in our stadium as well, and to be able to turn that stadium in a place that everybody feels that they can come and experience with their family and friends. And so we do a lot to kind of center around that fandom inside the stadium as well.
That's great. And look, I'm going to stay with you, Lisa, but each of you works with a sport that is ascendant, right? And certainly there's trends where people want to see, fans want to be more involved and have a bigger seat at the table, and there's an individuality of sports fans to not just follow the herd, and each of you are trendsetters in what you're doing. And certainly MLS has been the ultimate case study in terms of growth over time and being very disciplined in how they think about it. So as you think about growing your collective sports and your visibility, how do you think about, this is about the next generation of sports fans, how do you think about sports fans from a generational standpoint and making sure that you're satisfying the Gen Xers and at the same time being able to reach all the way down to the alphas and serve both masters, so to speak? How do you think about that?
Marketers will tell you you can't service everybody, but on the same tone. We try to. And so it's really about curating the experiences and figuring out what is important to each of those audiences. For us, I'll say the best thing that happened and the worst thing is the proliferation of digital and social, because on one hand, you have all of these competing offers and opportunities, but on the other hand, it gives us a ton of data. And so I'll say for us, leaning into the data and analytics that we have about each of these audiences and making sure that we're creating experiences within our stadium, within our product and our brand that actually speak to each of those. And you're allowed to do that a lot of times when you bring them in through digital and then allow them to experience in person.
That's great. AJ, how about for you?
Yeah, you know, for us, we're slightly unique in the sense that we're across 153 countries around the world. So for us, it's really understanding our core audience, right? So when it comes down to millennials, Gen Zs, and Gen Alphas, those three spectrums really are the people that participate, watch tech ball, and also buy our products as well. But when we cross boundaries and we cross cultures, how do we appeal to the man or woman in Asia versus a person in the Middle East versus a person in Europe? And I think for us, it's really understanding the data underneath the subset in terms of what they care about, right? In Middle America, someone else cares differently in terms of how tech ball shows up on their feed, whether that's on TikTok, Instagram, or whatever that is, versus in Europe or in the Middle East, for instance, where Twitter is a big use case and Snapchat is a big use case. And so what's the content, the strategic organic content that we apply in that platform overall? That's really important. So for us, we've leaned in there with our social team. And then sort of downloading that data in real time and trying to understand more. And it's really a process of iteration in academia, you know, and then deploying a scholastic approach as you move forward. So.
Yeah, I think I have tons in common with both of you, actually. We're all kind of targeting younger audiences, as well as serving sort of generational needs and generational fans. It can be tricky because you can't always service everyone. We often think about how to service fans who've been with us for decades, as well as nurture Gen Z, Gen Alpha. It comes down to some segmentation, right? I think you were hitting on that and being really prescriptive about where your growth really lies. We also are a global sport, so we have to think about cultural nuances and languages and references, very critical. I think too, I'll just add something that maybe you guys hadn't mentioned, which is using the power of the young athlete base helps us to connect with younger generations. If we look at our member base as well as our talent, we have over 120 million followers. So we're thinking a lot about how to create a network of athletes and influencers that our partners can tap into, that our fans can tap into, and that is more accessible than maybe some of the other elite athletes playing traditional sports. And it creates sort of a relevance and a connection and certainly a relationship with the younger fan base.
Yeah, certainly you're appealing to folks who do ride, who do surf, and then folks who are growing the sport as part of that journey, for sure. AJ, you were kind enough to invite me to one of the events that you had in Venice Beach this past spring. And I'm curious for all of you, when you think about the idea of experiencing sport and being in person, and that seems to be, you know, continuing to be an even more important aspect of how you grow fan bases or how you satisfy, create loyalty, and things of that nature. How do you think about the experiences of the events you have? And quite frankly, this is a great stage because we have a stadium, we have iconic locations that pop up around the world, and we have five-star beaches that as destinations. So we have a lot of playing fields and courts here to represent.
Yeah, you know, absolutely. Our last event, which Eric is referencing, was in Venice Beach, and we try and think about it. We run three types of events that sort of cater to the masses and a wider audience. We run a beach event, we run an indoor event, and we run an urban event. The one in Venice Beach was an urban event, quote unquote, based on the quintessential and everything else around it. And for us, it's really making sure, well, okay, do we want it to be a family day out? For the kids, parents, they can kind of come and take part, experience tech ball. We have coaches there, they can kind of teach a sport. You can buy merchandise. We have a pop-up store in real time. And then also you can interact with the athletes as well in their spare time whilst they're in between games. And then all our events are live on ESPN as well. So, and then we give out gifts. We do competition, we do prizes, so it's almost like an NBA experience in many ways. So that's something there that we've cultivated for that urban event. For the beach event, slightly different. Our last beach event was in Rio de Janeiro 4 weeks ago on Copacabana. And that's more of an osmosis vibe in a sense that obviously tech ball is synergistic with football, soccer. Right, it's a byproduct of it, and so we tie into the foot volley crowd there, and the cultural element of Rio as well, versus an event that we had at the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which is the world's tallest building, and that's again very different. That we tie into the cultural elements of that region, the Arab region, etc., and all the above. So we just try and cater it and tailor it to the experiential side of things, and also the content that is delivered as well in real time. We post in real time as well, organically via on all different social channels. And as I referenced, I think the platforms are really important that we kind of cater to. So.
So it's interesting because we talked about being a stadium, but when we built our stadium, it was really with the thought in mind that we wanted it to seem much sleeker than what you're used to, right? And so although we're in the middle of a bustling area, still working out parking, but it's once you get inside of the stadium, you really don't feel like you're in a stadium. And so what we try to sell, especially we have the hardcore soccer fan, the sports enthusiast, but we also have the casual fan who's a live event seeker, right? And they're the person that wants to experience something at 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. And so we have everything from it's almost like a stage, a stepping stone, right? And so you can have your hot dog if you want it, but you can also find carved beef in our Eagle Bank area. So for us, when we think about it, it's really about how can we create this immersive experience. And for those who have never experienced soccer, you don't realize, you have our supporters who are avid fans. That in of itself is an experience. But then you'll have fireworks. You'll have, you just never know what will happen inside of that stadium for that 2.5 to 3 hours. And so for when we showcase that, we do it through a lot of video and mobile. So video and mobile over indexes for us, and from a marketing perspective, as well as content monetization. So we take a lot of content and monetize around it to make sure that we're kind of communicating the right message to the right audience.
Yeah, live event seekers, I like.
Trademark.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a good one. It's a good one. I'm keeping it. I think we are evolving our sport from what was a free experience at the beach to a festival-like environment, right? The U.S. Open of Surfing is a good example of that, where we're offering concessions and bars and experiences. Our friends at Tech Ball were there entertaining the crowd. We've invited other professional teams out, signings, VIP areas, paid areas to upgrade your experience, merchandise. Certainly giving fans lots to do. When you come to a surf event, you stay on average 4 to 5 hours. So we need to make sure the experience warrants that. Now, most people who go to the beach are pretty excited to be at the beach, especially when the weather is good. So vibes are always high, but if you want folks to stay and invest in the experience, you need to give them all of those experiences to partake in. So we think a lot about that. We also think, because my job is revenue, about how to monetize the fan, right? And do it in a way that feels really authentic and value add. And so we are working hard at models to do that. And I think that the live event experience marketplace is thriving. I look at all kinds of experiences popping up, whether it was, what folks were doing in art with Van Gogh a couple years ago to the Sphere out in Vegas. I think that the bar is going to get higher in terms of entertaining, particularly Americans. There's a lot of technology that will help us do that effective and efficiently. So I'm really excited about the future of experiences.
And I just wanted to add one point. So one of the things that we've done in our stadium is to host other sporting events to kind of showcase, number one, the flexibility, but also bring other individuals that wouldn't necessarily be soccer fans into our stadium to be able to experience it.
I just have to tell everybody that in our prep call for this panel, Lisa made us all agree that she has the coolest stadium before we could move on from the start of the call.
Road trip.
Yeah, road trip.
So yes, we're going to take you up on that.
Absolutely.
Next time we're there.
I've been to your stadium. It is.
And you thought it was the best, right?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
We all
That is very good.
we all had stadium envy. That's pretty funny. I'm so glad you brought that up. And Cherie, I want to come back to you because I have so much admiration for the league that you guys run, and working with X Games, I aspire to a lot of the things that you guys do. As we think about live sports consumption, we think about the importance of television. Lisa, you had mentioned a little bit of digital and social and the merge of that. And think about the live games. AJ, you guys have an agreement with ESPN, so you have live coverage there, but social. And certainly for you, it was Surfline to begin with, .com, and the waves dictate when the event starts in some ways. And so you had to be built, the league had to be built with that kind of flexibility in mind and thinking about streaming first in many ways. But how do you guys think about the importance of live sport consumption and which screens those are on, and maybe a little bit of a peek into how you're addressing that in the future?
I mean, it's a really good question, and we're actually thinking about that a lot. So our sport, as you mentioned, is dependent on Mother Nature. So I always say we have really two big constituents. We've got the ocean, and we've got the athletes. And we travel to locations, remote locations at times, beautiful beaches around the world. And we have to create some connectivity and satellite service from those areas. In 1997, surfing began streaming from beaches in Portugal, really early, I think even before baseball, out of necessity, and mostly as a steward of the sport. And we've evolved from what was a live stream to a global broadcast. And kind of like FIFA, but not quite as big, we satellite out to all of our partners around the world, and we provide a live stream. Now we know that we're a world tour like F1, so sometimes we're at a time zone for a particular region. And we've been hard at work thinking about other products that will complement the live stream, as well as service Gen Alpha and Z and younger folks who maybe don't have as much attention or want to spend as much time and want to catch up on the best heats or the best moments. So we're doing everything, and I really did take a page out of ESPN where, sort of cutting content for every platform in every format and every sort of size, if you will. Everything from a long-form competition to an hour-long highlight show to a quick turn highlight show that the broadcasters can pick up and program within 24 hours, to highlights on YouTube and prepackaged best of moments, etc. I think we're still working and refining it, but there are even other ideas that we can explore, things like live look-ins for news and programs like SportsCenter, and ways for people to kind of look into the live moment, but also understand that they have plenty of opportunity to catch up on it in other forms, whether it's a docu-series or a highlight show.
Yeah, for sure.
This continues to dictate the way we live our lives, and it's really meeting our audience, our fans, and our consumers where they're at, and eliminating the friction. That's really important for us. And what I mean by that is, all our events are very accessible. They're live on YouTube, streamed. They're on ESPN. all our events. They're on Twitch. And then at the same time, we shoot out highlight reels within 4 or 5 hours after the event on social media channels, both TikTok, Instagram, all the above. And then I continue to, one of the things when we talk about underpriced attention, which is something we focused on, especially this year with our organization, TikTok, I think, yes, continues to speak to Gen Alphas and below. But for us, Facebook Reels, we've seen a huge arbitrage there as far as underpriced attention. I think it behaves like TikTok did 4 years ago. So that's something to know. And then LinkedIn, I think, continues to be an underpriced attention as well. So that's something there that we continue to kind of pump content out on that side of things. But overall, it's removing the toll booth, really. I think eliminating the friction is really, really important for us overall. And then sort of the content we do put out, how engaging is it? And I've always said with TechBall, eventually, I mean, we're in year 2 of our ESPN deal right now. 16 live events was the agreement with them. But I see us eventually in the future where the huge arbitrage is for us is within TikTok, you know, moving into that audience and that captive notion. So, yeah, we are constantly evolving and looking at ways that we can kind of meet the audience where they're at. So
that's great.
So our deal, our TV deal was local up until a year ago. And then we, the league signed a massive game-changing deal with Apple Plus. And so if you think about a local team, you only were able to really to service up that content to individuals within a certain radius. Now with the Apple Plus deal, anyone, wherever you are, whatever screen you're looking on, you can view our games and other games. And so you can follow your favorite players. You also can identify new favorite teams because you have access to all of this content. The interesting thing about is that it shows on every device. So for us, I'm able to now track a lot more about that user and their experience and what they're interested in. So it makes our content that we deliver on other platforms that much better. And so we have the content from Apple Plus. We also have our own content team, great content team that follows the team around. And so they're able to do kind of game day prep, follow behind the scenes, you know, all of those different things that you typically wouldn't have time for. We put those in digestible nuggets on each of these platforms. The one thing I'll say that has helped us is that we're honest about what we expect our return on investment to be on each of these platforms. So if I'm putting content on TikTok, I'm really not expecting a lot of purchase there. That is really informative. It's interesting content. I may want to you know, share with how do you get to the stadium? You know, how does somebody walk through, you know, getting to the stadium on the metro? Or, you know, we may partner with mobile apps and drop content there as well, but we don't look for we don't look for actual ticket purchase, right? We look for eyeballs, engagement, and then LinkedIn, I'm glad that you brought that up. I think that's one of the most underused platforms, especially when you have an opportunity in each of these, whether it's sponsors, whether it's corporate dollars, whether it's high-end ticket purchases, et cetera. There's just a number of different ways that you can market and showcase video content on there as well.
So do you establish separate then internal KPIs based on how where the content is and how the content is being digested and consumed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most people are impatient when you're not kind of used to having to drive revenue or marketing dollars, that they expect immediate return from the day that you launch that campaign. And a lot of times you're having to explain, first we need to let it breathe for a minute. It will pick up, but then that might also not be the platform that I need, you know, 3 million impressions on. I only expect 50,000.
Yeah, look, in my career, I'm going to maybe add to what you're going to say. In my career, we went from 3 channels to 1,500 cable channels to, you know, 9 apps that we're paying separately with carousels to find programming. Where are we in the journey of fan sophistication of being able to find your content where they want to consume it? Do you think we're like beginning stages still, or do you think we were evolved into the mature stages?
I have to say, I think the media landscape is still in transition very much, and we're seeing that even with the big media companies, some of which we worked at. Obviously, fans are migrating over the top. young fans are already there, as well as on some of these other platforms. And their experience on those platforms needs to be different. As you mentioned, they want to comment, they want to share, they want to be participating with content, which is not something that linear television really can offer them. But I would say we're absolutely watching where the viewing is trending. But I think the world may be coming to a place where they're realizing simplicity for the customer and the viewer may need to be prioritized in the coming years.
Yeah. AJ, you thought on that and maybe on the KPI, because I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a couple of thoughts. Proximity drives influence, right? And so from that perspective, I think a lot of people, you mentioned something that I think is really critical. A lot of people go into marketing and advertising. Sales and marketing are very different, right? Very binary. Sales is very binary, marketing is very different. But sometimes we treat marketing like sales. We expect an ROI. And so we have to act in accordance to that. And what I call BAM, which is branding, advertising, and marketing, vastly different. And to that point, I just think overall it's math versus art. Right, and that's what it really comes down to. And the thing you mentioned is your extinction curve has to be high, right? And because we always expect a return if we run a marketing ad or campaign, it's, well, what's the ROI of that? And what I mean by that, your extinction curve is if you knock on a door once and no one opens, how many more times you knock on that door before you walk away, right? How do you create subsets of different cohorts that you test and figure out what works? And I think a lot of times that's a mistake we make when it comes to posting on these platforms and expecting it to yield the same outcome as we did, or the traction we see on Instagram didn't happen on TikTok versus LinkedIn versus Facebook. So we make a human decision that it didn't work. So.
It's so funny because I talk about the current climate, and I feel like our customers are very smart. And they also expect that we'll rise up and meet them. I always say that. It's like it used to be where you created this experience and you expected everyone to enjoy it's like build it and they will come. Now it's the fan, the consumer actually expects that we're going to build that experience for them. And when they walk through the door or they enter into a site or they come to an experience, that it's exactly what they thought it was going to be. And so our room for error is actually really small in that. And so that's why you see when we talk about, and I'm a Netflix, Hulu type of person, is why you see so many people binge watch shows, right? Because they know exactly what to expect. They're bought in, and guess what? I can sit down and get that experience over and over and over again, and no one's gonna stop or interrupt me, right? And so I say that to say when we talk about where we are right now, that is the part that's also challenging, is we know that that's what their expectation is. We can't always deliver it. And that's what we have to get better at.
And I think the point on patience you made, patience is important, because I don't think the world necessarily has as much patience as it had for, let's say, new ideas or new shows to develop audiences, or marketing programs to work their way through the awareness funnel down to performance metrics. So when do you give up? When do you lean in? And I think for us, it's about measurement too, quality measurement that can give you those insights to make the next best decision.
Look, we had the opportunity to work with a company that is clearly a mammoth company with incredible collection and suite of rights, but each of you has what I think is the emerging trend of creating content that's in the hands of consumers with a business model that is pressure tested for the future, not trying to hold on to the way the past consumption was. So in many ways, and I'm selfishly wanting to listen to you guys talk about it, because how you think about it is dictating how future rights deals are thought about, serving ads within the community, or commercializing or operationalizing revenue from this while you're at the same time supporting. Because certainly generations have a different approach or receptivity to a lot of the things that was a given as part of the handshake of, I'm going to give you this content and this access, and this is what you're going to be able to absorb and put up with during that. Yeah. So I want to ask one final question, which is about athletes, and I think that there's differences in terms of a team and a league where it's all about the beautiful game, and then obviously global athletes with both of you and how the importance of that. Just real briefly, because we have a little bit of time, how do you think about the athlete? How important is the athlete for your league or for your team, and how do you think about using their own fandom?
Yeah.
Lisa, I'll start with you.
So the athlete is the league for us. What's interesting though about soccer, and I want to make sure they get some time, is that typically when you see the soccer player out and about, you're not going to be able to identify who that is or what team they play for. Whereas in other leagues, there are individuals who are actually brands, and I won't take your because you mentioned this on the call, but so for us, we lean into the content. We have to lean in more from that standpoint, but we really focus on get them in, get them bought into the experience, and then we educate them on who the players are, who's a part of the team, and what makes that so special.
Wait, real quick, you mentioned something on the call about something that MLS had done, which I thought was really landmark that I bet most people don't know, in terms of use of marks of other players and teams and promotion.
Yeah, I don't know if I can.
Oh, never mind.
But we actually, in promoting different games, et cetera, we're actually able to use the name and image of key players that everybody may recognize, and I know some of you can
lots
make
of them.
Lots of those.
Key players, but as a league, they're thinking about it.
As a league, they've actually come on the forefront of how do we do that, and how do we enable every team to take advantage of that brand recognition.
I just thought it was a great way of being
is.
local, but at the same time, the league thinking about it's the localities and the nationality
It's the
and the global sport
yeah,
perspective.
absolutely.
I thought it was very cutting edge. AJ?
Yeah, I think for us, similarly, it's the athlete makes up what we do on a daily, weekly basis. And for instance, our next event we have an event this weekend in Venice Beach. After this one, we have our Tech Ball World Championships, which is in Bangkok in Thailand. An example of that is we are hyperbolizing our Thai athletes who are number 3 in the world right now, but we've promoted them in that market around Asia. And building their characters up. I've always said with different leagues, you have to have the characters within the athletes to promote not only the league teams, etc., and all the above, but that's really important. If you look at any sport across the chasm, whether it's UFC, boxing, NBA, etc., they have characters. So I think for us, it's really building that, and which is what we're going through right now. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. We're also an individual sport focused on building star power and influence, and working with that community of athletes to sort of train them up to be higher profile figures. And we offer them benefits and services, whether that's media training, help with their foundations, even advice on their sponsorship agreements and or entrepreneurial goals. So I think it is about giving them the tools to become stars, giving them the opportunity to have the profile, whether it's creating new docuseries on platforms like Apple TV where they can be exposed to more people, or giving them an opportunity to participate in more publicity. All of those things help to build stars. One thing that we notice is emerging with us is there's obviously the individual stars, but now that we are an Olympic sport, there's nationalism. And so we're kind of playing with the idea of individual star power and also team nations. And we see certain nations around the world actually really engage when they have winners. And we're identifying those ahead of sort of the Olympic year to figure out who our top tier, kind of potential stars could be. So all of that very important. At the end of the day, I think, we're all in the sports and entertainment business, and sports and entertainment is about human potential, right? Like people tune in because they can see people do things that they can't do. And so we need to continue to inspire at scale and keep the bar high so people keep coming back.
Great. Well, thank you guys very much. I invite you all to Aspen for the X Games, and I expect an invitation to one of these other locations. And I'm going to have a shaved beef when I'm in DC. All right? Thank you very much. I appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you.